data science services as a company and scaling it to become an AI powerhouse. So, what is that one piece of advice? One thing that. Hello and welcome everyone to the next episode of the A Media House podcast, Simulated Reality. Today we have with us the co-founder and CEO of USEReady, Uday Hegde. Welcome, Uday. How are you today?
Thank you very much for having me on this, Kashyap. I have a huge respect for your research team, AIM research team particularly, and thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Thank you for the kind words. Today, Uday, we are going to talk about your journey. We want to understand your perspective, individual journey to grow an analytics and a data science company, right? But before we get into that, start talking about this. Why the name USEReady? What was the thought process behind it? Let's start at the very beginning, and then maybe we can deep dive into how USEReady scaled from its inception to become a AI powered company.
Very good question. I get asked that a lot. In fact, the name USEReady, the user is symbolic to a citizen data scientist who's trying to wrangle data to make decisions every day. Right? In our naming, what we are really addressing is our marketplace and why we exist. So UserReady exists to make this community of average, daily decision makers or citizen data scientists to be successful with data. Hence the name UserReady.
Okay, fantastic. I think that's an interesting thought process, right? And you started back in 2011, right? I think the data industry was at its inception. Many companies were starting to talk about it, and HBR called data scientists as the sexiest job of 21st century. And a lot of buzz around it. When was it you realized that it has a potential to become a big industry, and what was your thought process at the same time, especially considering what other companies were starting to do, also considering that there is a big IT presence in India who are already offering services, who are also navigating into it? And why did you think that you will be able to carve a niche out for yourself within that and grow the market to today becoming a 400 people organization? Let's just start with some of your thought processes during that time between you and your co-founder.
Yeah, it's actually an interesting question. When we started in 2011, it was right around when I decided to quit my corporate job and deciding on this journey of entrepreneurship with some hunch, if you will. If you look at the general technology industry, like the PCs in the 80s, internet in the 90s, then mobile and cloud in like 2000s, right? It was a very interesting inflection point. It was sort of inevitable that it would be decade of the data. Now, what we did not know right then and there and how that's going to unfold, right? If you recollect, by then, there were some companies that were already in existence doing data science as a business model, and they were building huge services organizations around data science communities. And then the industry of big data and Hadoop especially was the rage, right? And then if you look at that time, the BI industry, the traditional BI was end of the runway, right? And the cloud had not taken off. So these were some of the situation elements at that point in time. So we decided, we closely watched it, and actually some of it, due to the background that I had, was it was going to be the self-service analytics. That's the key theme, and that was the twist to the game, right? So where the data went to the users, to the hands of the decision makers, or to the masses. Data went to the masses, and that is that's what incubated us almost, right? In order to be part of that journey, we had to make some choices. The choices being, okay, now you started a business, so what, right? Where do you want to be? Where do you want to go? How do you acquire customers, right? Those questions were difficult, of course, for any company that starts. We decided to explore the channel around ISVs. Kid you not, I interviewed about a dozen or so BI companies that existed at that time, and we landed on Tableau, which was a very small company out of Seattle. not a well-known brand, but I had some experience around them because while I was in my corporate job, I had run into them as a small tool. I had explored them a little bit. Thought it was the right timing to be partners with them. We were actually the second partner to them in the world. We almost incubated their channel and the partner ecosystem with another company being, out of Oklahoma. So we were the two first partners in that ecosystem that became massive later. So the self-service analytics was the theme that really took off from there. We became known as Tableau people, but most importantly to me, it resonated with our name so well, right? To help organizations and users to be successful with data. That really helped us to get to those users.
Okay, so then it started out as a service provider company in general, but you decided to enter the space of data. Is that how it kind of evolved, or you were always going to be analytics first company?
So it's kind of a chicken and egg answer, right? Usually it is always the chicken and egg answer. My background, right, in the past was the prior, say, 6-7 years I'd spent around data. So there was that background to that. However, when you launch, it wasn't exactly clear this is the way to go and this will take us home. That is unclear. So we had a idea of a zip code. I remember telling, early days that if I could not build a $20 million business between 100th Street and Battery Park in Manhattan, then I should go back to corporate. That was my sort of mental barometer or benchmark to say, okay, this is where we should get to. And that was kind of the path. And if you see Manhattan as your sort of the perfect location to really build a business, in my mind, you have all your customers. You can almost literally run into them or walk into them, walking on the street, and but you have to have the right product, right reason, right thinking to be there. So it was sort of the chicken and egg answer to you. It was a hunch, but at the same time, it was a deliberate choice of partners. It was not accidental.
You've already worked in some of these companies. Now probably they are your clients. I'm not too sure, but you've worked with Credit Suisse, Hewlett Packard, and some of your experiences. How did some of your experiences in these companies shape into what UserReady is today? And was there somewhere at some point where you realized, what, these companies are doing this, probably if there is a service provider for us that can enable or complete the puzzle for us, the efficiency kind of enables them to become user ready. So what were some of your learnings in these organizations that kind of enabled your thought process to start thinking about building a analytics company, or at that time IT/analytics company?
I actually, it's kind of funny. I'll answer in two parts. First part, from a personal lens perspective, I always ask any wannabe startup founder one question: that can you convince your boss to be a customer? So most of the time, if you struggle, then where to improve. But the point is, one is that is a required quality in my mind to really be a good startup founder. In the second part, yes, some of them are my customers. And actually, the fun fact though is this way. In my experience, no knowledge you gain working at a job goes waste if you apply them. So going back to your first question, which is the Wall Street, Credit Suisse was a bellwether. It's now part of UBS, but to be a great place to work for and learn a lot, amazing culture. And basically, it was a sort of the door to the world of Wall Street for me. And I was really able to appreciate the value of data. Right? In fact, I was there during the best times of Wall Street, I would say. Hedge funds, IPO, trading, they were all on fire in those days, right? Almost Wall Street was firing in all the cylinders, especially real estate and the mortgage that did really well early on, before the crisis. So those were the best times to be in, and we were incubating so many new concepts, so many new ideas, a lot of capital flow available in the market, right? Interestingly enough, I was part of the market risk team, which actually helped me to appreciate complex financial instruments, how transformative the banking system is for the economy. And we could really see, understand and appreciate the all sort of statistics around, risk calculations, right? Whether it's value at risk and scenario sensitivity and the data storage systems to really make these things work, models and their complexity. A lot of the learning comes from those days, right? It sort of became the backbone, and obviously you're very quickly successful as USEReady in the financial services because of the backbone. So you have a bedrock foundation on it, right? So going back to the other job I had, where I started with actually not Hewlett Packard, but digital equipment. If you know that, you're almost like, older generation, because most people don't know what is digital equipment anymore. DEC was actually the pioneer in their days. That was the highly innovative company before modern tech firms that right, that came about. So DEC became Compaq and Hewlett Packard. I started as a programmer and eventually ended up doing some e-commerce programming during the dot-com later days and everything. That really improved my understanding of e-commerce business and the CRM domain. um, Life comes full circle when Salesforce acquired Tableau, basically a big CRM player, right? SaaS cloud player, acquiring the BI leader. So it was kind of full spectrum for me. But I would like to say that those learnings were extremely helpful when we started building the business and taking off, and especially selling to large enterprise. If you have the understanding of how they buy, that is a huge plus to thrive and succeed as an entrepreneur, because every day we are in front of these customers, we know their buying cycles, but otherwise it would have been a huge gap.
Fantastic. And you talked about the foundation, right? That was important. There were some existing one or two customers that you had to onboard. What if tomorrow, a service provider, what if, and what tomorrow if someone comes and says, what, hey, I want to start my own data science company, right? There are already so many players now. They're not just service providers, but everything is getting productized now. Even service providers are enabling productization through a lot of mediums. What advice would you give them? Because today is not like when you started out. There were two things. One was you already had an existing one or two customers which you could sign up immediately, and secondly, you always had the early mover advantage because you started in 2011. But in today's world, should they be starting a company? If yes, then what is some of the things that they should think through so that they can enable their company to become the USEReadys of today? Can you help us behind that thought process?
It's a good loaded question, actually. I think every entrepreneur should know one thing, that is, there is no such thing as perfect time. There is no such thing as early mover advantage, right? None of that is actually true. Everything is a myth in a way. But the key thing is, the question is really, what do you want to be after you started? Things that you started now what? So your priorities keep changing in the first 100 days to first 1,000 days, from 1,000 days to 10,000 days. So if you plan to stay around to see that 10,000 days, you can kind of think about what are the components you need. So starting as a services company versus product company, the key theme is, though, as a services company, you have very little capital you need to bootstrap, if you will, right? You could literally start in your basement. But if you make other choices, then you may have to plan for a lot more capital. That's why many companies need, angel investors and VCs and all these through the rounds. So there is no such thing as a perfect timing. One should be able to start any day.
There is no such thing as a perfect timing, or early mover advantage is a myth. Something as two new learnings for me, especially in the world of data science, and it is saturated with so many service providers. That's an interesting piece of advice, right? One of the things that what some of the advisory people come to AIM Research and ask them these questions, right? When do I start hiring my people? When do I start hiring data scientists, right? Should I hire them already? They should be on a payroll, or should I first get my client and then this thing? But if I don't have the team, and then I'm going to clients trying to pitch an idea, trying to showcase my talent pool, which is virtually non-existent, then how do they kind of how do they make their first sale? And again, a chicken and egg problem. Like, this is, how do they kind of initiate that?
That's very true. I think first of all, almost everything you solve in this space is in the journey of entrepreneurship is a chicken and egg problem, right? That is a given. Most importantly, I think one perception that is there is hiring to a specific gig is one way to look at it. Then you can absolutely go to gig economy, vendors like Upwork. You get plenty of talented individuals, and in fact, if you cannot afford, probably that's your best bet, right? But if you decide to use a word which is employees, then I have a bigger connotation to that, because I think hiring employees is a huge responsibility, right? One should know that, meaning you cannot just hire someone as an employee and then for a project and terminate, unless you have plans for them, for their career, for their journey, for their outcome, for their success. One should not hire, right, as an employee. If you want to build a team, then I think one should start with what is the first thing that you need to build a team is capital, meaning you have to pay their salaries. So from the day one till date, right, from the first hire to the current stage, we never missed a payroll, because we were always planning for that. We knew if a person has to be hired, we should plan to take care of them, and whatever we promise, we have to come through. So that is not something that you can take lightly. So planning for that is crucial, right? Now I'll give you another line that I always tell people, that in life, surprise is good. In business, surprise is not good. Means you should do everything possible to mitigate the surprises in business. It's okay to lose money in a year, may not make a profit, whatever happens. But if that's a surprise, that's when it's a problem. If you know you're going to make $1 million loss, so go for it. That's fine.
Okay. Now we have discussed how to start and some of the advice. I'm sure that some of the aspiring founders for data science service providers will definitely find useful. Now you have started. Let's say you've signed 2-3 clients, right? One of the things that I've always heard from data science service providers, profitability, especially in data science, will only come when you hire Fortune 500s or the bigger giants. There is no way to kind of sustainably scale a company by providing to other clients who can't shell out the cash. What is your thought on this? And so now USEReady also has ventured into mainly serving for the Fortune 500. What is your thought process on this? Do you still do that? Do you still believe that only big companies can drive profitability, considering the salaries that need to be paid to data scientists, or is there some other strategy? And what was USEReady's thought when they started to scale from one client to two to four to eight, and then onwards?
So I think it's a offering oriented strategy, to be honest, right? So you have to really decide on what are you selling, who's your target market. In general, I would say this way: if you're from the scratch trying to found a business and trying to come up with an idea, I would always say that go after rich people's pocket, right? Why are you going after a beggar's pocket? So rich people, in the sense I'm saying, like large enterprises, right, have deep pockets, they have big budgets, right? They have money to spend, and they can give you a piece of the wallet, no problem, and that's good. But on the other hand, to go after that, obviously everyone knows this. So you're not the only one who knows this, right? So now everyone's after the same philosophy. So that means as a company, you have to be built on a right foundation, that you can do business with them. You have to understand how these big enterprises buy from companies. They do want to buy, they always want to buy, but you just have to be the right supplier who matches their criteria. Just to give an example, if you want to do business with any reasonably sizable bank, they will ask you at least $10 million of error and omission insurance for any mistakes you may make or your people may make. So think about it, $10 million of error and omission insurance alone is going to be not cheap, right? And that money is not going to come back, it's going to be gone. So if you are not able to charge them enough money to even recover the premium, forget about paying your employees and everybody else, right? Think about it, right? So you have to really have the offering that they're willing to pay the money that you need to run the infrastructure. And then there is the decision cycles. 8 months, 9 months, 1 year, budget cycles. So choices of whatever the choices you're making on the industry, people, offering, everything is connected there. So it's not one angle alone. So you have to think through carefully.
Fantastic. And but then today, even today, right? Some of the some of the clients come to us. They say that we want to meet some clientele, and the Fortune 100, especially market, has been captured, right? So we want to meet a little bit tier two. How sustainable is that strategy? And do you think that user ready will? So is there some kind of a parameter that you put before acquiring a client, or if you even if a small project comes but they have the money, you take it? Is that some kind of thing, filters that for client acquisition that they should put? And how did user ready approach that?
So client acquisition is a game of statistics, right? So if you look at anybody, any company that's looking to acquire customers or clients, you have the same game of statistics that plays into you, right? Whether it's the, you know, social media, whether it's, e-commerce, Google SEO, whatever strategy you're deploying for marketing or demand generation is same. If you can afford to pick up based on that, right, then you're better off selecting those that have deeper pockets and where you have reasonably sizable wallet expansion. So by that guideline, we actually, from the get-go, we knew that we want to be playing in the large enterprise category. So we devised our offerings, we made choices to play with that community, to be part of that. But that's like swimming among the whales. You're dealing with Accentures and Deloitte's, IBM's every day of the week. But then you need to know who's your customer in that big organization. If you go to the same customer, same buyer that is buying from Accentures of the world, obviously they're going to not buy from you, most likely, right? So choose someone else. There are a lot of buyers within that big organization that have different budget levels, and map up to that level of the organization with the right budget. So that's a homework that one needs to do in
Yeah.
that.
And many startups fail, that it's not just the case with AI or data science, but many startups to start, they have the right strategy, they have the right resources, but there are market circumstances as such that, probably something like a black swan event can come, like COVID probably, and you're just not able to afford it. But there is a way that there is a kind of threshold or a scale when a company reaches, when even if there is a black swan event or there is something that can will not you don't need to worry too much about shutting down your data science services company. How do you measure that scale? Is there a scale, firstly? And is there a scale where you can say that, what, now I can't, I will not need to shut down my ad data sets. I may face difficulties. Every business does on a daily basis, but You've made it. Is there a way to measure that?
Yes, there is. So first of all, businesses again don't collapse on its own, right? If a black swan event happens, the question is that a surprise? So I'm going back to my original premise, right? I said nothing should be in a business is surprise. So I'm asking that question, was that a surprise? I will tell you, in my experience, having interacted with a lot of founders also, almost all of them will say it was not a surprise, but we ignored it potentially, or it was really a surprise. So now if you see those two categories, the third category is it was not a surprise, we knew it, but we prevented it, or we did something to, you know, COVID was a perfect case, right? A lot of companies could not survive. It is, you can say that's a black swan event. Nobody forecasted COVID's going to happen. It showed up, right? All that stuff. But if you were in any part of the world, there was a possibility to survive your business, but don't give up. I think many times the founders or entrepreneurs give up before the business dies for the eventual, demise. So to me, that's something to watch out for. Otherwise, businesses don't die. If you have a customer paying you your money, even $1, the question is, okay, you took the $1. How much does it cost you to, service that $1? This basic math sounds seemingly basic, right? You can go back and do the research in so many companies, they don't have this math right. The companies die because of that. The unit cost economics, it's called unit economics sometimes, is something that most founders don't understand. You will never make a loss if you're able to service that within a profitable measure. They always think service will, the profits will come later at scale, but no, should know that. Like most companies don't have that. Eventually, many companies, you know this obviously. There are many companies that were highly loss making even at scale, burning cash, bleeding cash, and eventually found some acquirer and stuck with it. But then otherwise, it's a basic arithmetic issue, I think.
Fantastic. I think that helps a lot. I think we have set the, we have set a good context for someone trying to start a data science service provider company. My one final question is what is that one piece of advice that you would give, right? That one thing that always stuck with you and helped you throughout your journey, that, made you never give up, providing data science services as a company and scaling it to become an AI powered, AI powerhouse. So what is that one piece of advice?
This is something that is very much this is something that I will say is very much common theme, meaning everyone knows it but somehow don't get it. I'll tell you that. So the core values. So I will say that one thing that is the core values is what you need to really pay attention to. You might have seen, every company out there has a page on their website dedicated to core values. As soon as you walk into their office, it's bold, written everywhere, but it is not practiced. And what is that then? What is the core value? So basically, that is, it's about what you say and what you practice. Whenever there's a gap, that causes a cultural problem. So to me, that is one thing I would say stuck with me. It was so amazingly surprising to me because I did not realize it, the value of it when I was in corporate. It came out even when I was running the business, that and then I recognized if you identify those core values of your business properly and stick with it, you could build any business. Doesn't matter service or product or whatever, you'll be fine. You'll be successful.
Fantastic. On that positive note, thank you so much, Uday, for giving your wisdom to new founders in scaling and making data science companies as successful as USEReady. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.